Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Karen Barton, and I'm the training manager at National MI. We're going to go ahead and get our webinar started today. So with that, the floor is being turned over to Stephen Paulson. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephen Paulson. I am an account manager with National MI. I've been in the MI industry for 18 years, and the last 3 here with National. I oversee the Orange County and San Diego County areas here in Southern California. And before I pass it on to our presenter, I wanted just to tell you a little bit more about National MI. You see, we were built with the customer in mind, and we dedicate and pride ourselves into providing you guys with the wow factor. And that's not just coming from me, it's coming from everybody and all my colleagues, my executives, the underwriting solution center teams, training and technology associates, serving, and the claims groups. It's a conviction and a promise that all associates here strive for on a daily basis. Again, we are built with you guys in mind, the customer in mind, and if you would like to know a little bit more about your National MI and connect with your sales advisor, go to nationalmi.com, click on Find Your Sales Advisor, reach out to them, and ask them to come out and present at your next branch meeting. I promise you, you will not be disappointed, and I know you'll pick up a few great tips on how to grow your business. Now, speaking about growing your business, today's presentation is on leveraging a social impact strategy to gain Gen Z referrals. Today's topic is presented to you by the incredible Kristen Mezzarelli. Kristen is a nationally renowned speaker on the topic of business growth through social impact. She is the founder of Cultural Outreach and managing editor of Mortgage Women magazine. Kristen has spoken at well over 100 conferences, including the Mortgage Bankers Association, American Bar Association, Harvard Business School, and of course here at National MI. So without further ado, Kristen Mezzarelli, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm going to turn on my video here to get started. So I am really excited about the opportunity to share on this particular subject. As was mentioned, social impact is why I got in this industry to begin with. And when I say social impact, I mean doing something that impacts your community or impacts the people that you serve. And I believe in the mortgage industry, there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of people who are doing great things in their community and are able to leverage that to a much greater capacity to grow your business. So what I see a lot of times in the mortgage industry is that we are separating the good that we do or that loan officers and mortgage companies are doing in the industry and separating that from the opportunity to advertise and get new leads from that impact. So what I specialize in and my team specializes in is mission-driven marketing strategies to reach young and diverse markets. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to walk through a few of the trends and then we'll get into some specific marketing techniques. And as Karen mentioned, I absolutely love questions and comments, would love examples of what you're doing and how we could kind of talk that through to a strategy that works for you. If we don't have time to answer all of them or discuss them on the call, then I will be happy to follow up as well. So to get started, I want to give a little bit of an introduction to my company. We do training and social media engagement for employees as well as strategy for companies on helping them develop their mission-driven marketing strategy. So it is everything that we're talking about today. So hopefully you get some great practical takeaways from the presentation. And Stephen gave a great introduction to why I work with National MI. National MI is such an incredible company that truly is always bringing, I believe, the best value and authentic value to their customers. So we're really excited to partner with them, and I think this is going to be another one of those value adds for your employees as well. And coming up next month, we are releasing our 2018 report of the best mobile apps for homebuyers at every stage of the home buying process. So we go through and identify at every stage of home buying, what apps are people using and which ones are best for them to use at that stage. so that you can be the expert in providing a resource for them. You can share this report directly with them, or just be educated and say, oh, this app would be great for that, or I've got an app for that. And so we want to always be keeping you in the know and knowledgeable about modern trends. So this is one way we do that on an annual basis. So to start, I want to talk a little bit about some of the shift in culture around social impact and using social impact in business. And then we'll talk about storytelling and mission-based communication, how companies are using that, and then get into really practical next steps on how you can integrate that messaging into your strategy. So to start, what motivates young consumers to care about social causes? Why is this shift happening? I think a lot of people were looking at social impact, or the gifts, that there's lots of gifts around that have, if you buy a bracelet, it is helping someone in need in Africa, or if you buy Warby Parker glasses, a pair of glasses is given to someone in need. And these things started coming up several years ago. Maybe it's been about 6 or 7 years ago when it really started to pick up. And I think a lot of people and businesses really looked at this as something that's nice that young people do, but they're going to grow up and that's going to go away. And while it's true, you grow up and realize you need to make money, and it's not all about social impact, but it is. It hasn't gone away at all. In fact, it has been integrated practices. Young people are looking to businesses with the expectation that they have the responsibility to have social impact. And with the way that social media works today, consumers are having a big impact in directing communication from and impact from businesses. So walking through some of that kind of perspective, one, younger people and honestly consumers as a whole, this is a trend that is affecting the entire society. We're shifting more toward this desire to seek meaning in our workplace, in the products that we purchase. With the evolution of the internet and the development of just having instant access to information at our fingertips, as consumers, we have grown to really believe in doing our research on any product. We want to know where our products are coming from. And we want to know that because we have the ability to look things up, we are being more careful about how we make purchasing decisions. So some of the psychology behind it, we hear a lot about the me generation, and this was my favorite time cover, I think, of all time, that was talking about the millennial generation and saying millennials are lazy, entitled narcissists who live with their parents. And then that is just what I hear every time I speak about millennials. I ask what are the first things you think of when you think of millennials? And people constantly say lazy, entitled. Well, the reality is that there has been such a shift from just this selfie generation, which, by the way, I think everyone takes selfies, and from growing up in a world where we have a lot more access to things and to resources, this hyper-attention has led to feelings of being special or significant. And so we always joke about the participation trophy generation as well, where we grew up getting a participation trophy and getting a trophy even if we made it in last place. So that has some negative side effects. That is some of the cons of where maybe there's a sense of entitlement sometimes, and I would say that is not the case across the whole generation, but there's a sense of I want to be recognized, I want to feel special as a generation. And but the positive aspect of this is that this generation really feels responsible and like they personally can make a difference. So because it has become very we're taking control as consumers, and we feel more empowered as an individual, we also feel empowered to make a difference. So this is a really interesting perspective. And so while some of the negatives might come with feelings of entitlement, or even I hear a lot of people say that a lot of Millennials or Gen Zers will want to climb the ranks way too fast. But the good side of that is that a lot of younger people are looking for the shortest distance from point A to point B, and they're looking to kind of what steps can I take to move faster. And so there's positives on this side that I think are going to really propel our society towards one that is more productive and making a greater impact in a socially conscious way. So the second is personal connection is really important. You see with Millennials and Gen Z that they want a relationship with their brands that they work with, and they want a relationship with the providers they work with. So many people think that that with technology that kind of separates the relationship, but I always say that technology should increase or enhance the relationship because Millennials really want and Gen Zers really want to have that personal connection. And in fact, there was a PwC study done a couple years ago that was studying what Millennials want or what consumers want in the mortgage buying process, and they found that personalization was still the #1 thing that they wanted in a relationship with their lender. So that personal connection is really key. They want to contribute at the local level as well. They want to be involved in activities and things that are having an impact. They're highly connected. We are the most connected generation. Now Gen Z is the most connected generation, and we are growing so much as a society in the way that we can communicate through multiple channels at once. We are communicating over email, text, instant messenger, and a lot of other platforms that are just constantly how we're communicating. So with the internet and social media, we have constant exposure to global, national, and local issues, which has made a big difference in how we see our ability to impact. With social media and this kind of connection, we not only know about everything, but we also can talk about it to a lot of people. We value transparency and authenticity. We want to know what companies are doing with the money that we pay. We want to know we want to know the details of a mortgage transaction. We want to know that that a company is authentic when they talk about their values as well. So we'll talk more about this later, but a lot of companies just display their values on their website, talk about their values. That's not enough today. Today is about taking action and showing with an authentic voice how you are living those values. And we expect companies to be a force for change. Corporation does have this kind of expectation that companies are going to use the money that we give them to have a positive impact. For example, right now we were talking about the separation of children from their parents at the border. And because of consumer pressure, and there's just an expectation that bigger companies need to take a stand. And in fact, I would say any company needs to take a stand on human rights issues in particular. So we saw American Airlines and United Airlines, and there may be others, but those are the two that I know of that said that they would not transport children from the border so that they were not participating in that separation of children from parents. So a really interesting point that we're seeing so much more of that, where companies are involved in having this impact, and there's an expectation from consumers that they would do that. So it's no longer about what do you stand for, but what do you stand up for. So this is what I was talking about with the values. It's not just what do you stand for, family and being, responsibility and whatever your values are that you talk about. It's what do you stand up for? What are the causes? What do these values mean in action? And this is a lot because we grew up in a world where there's a lot of distrust around corporations. There's a Pew Research study that showed that only 19% of millennials said people in general could be trusted, in contrast with 31% of just the previous generation. And I thought this was really interesting because I don't think that this is a bad thing. I think we entered adulthood either during or right after the financial crisis, and this opened our eyes to realize, hey, like not everything, the world the companies that we interact with, this is very broken, and we need to be very careful about who we're giving our money to and how we are purchasing things. We need to make sure that we understand the terms of everything, right? We can't just trust the fine print. And I think that this generation has really grown up with so much distrust that it creates a little bit of a barrier sometimes to entry for companies and providers. I know I hear a lot from loan officers and realtors that this is a big barrier to getting the trust. But if you are showing that you're someone who is having an impact on your community, you're someone who is authentically a good person, and you're providing transparent education, then you will get through that barrier very, very quickly. And in fact, the great thing about this is that once you get through that barrier, you're seen as someone who stands out among everyone else. If everyone is seen as someone not to be trusted, but then you get through that barrier as someone who is the trusted advisor through this process, I'm not only going to want to do business with you, but I want to make sure everyone else I know does business with you as well. For example, and this is, again, relevant not just with younger segments, but also particularly in multicultural communities where trust is a big deal. And in any multicultural strategy, we talk about social impact strategy. How do you get involved in your community to keep showing consistency and showing that you're someone who cares about their community? So for example, there was a company in Birmingham, I believe, where we were helping them update their service to better serve the Vietnamese community. And one person came in, had a really positive experience. They brought in an entire neighborhood of Vietnamese people that wanted a refi or a new mortgage, and it was just a huge result because of this, just showing that this person could be trusted. So that's a lot of what we're doing here. So what are the hot issues? What are the main causes that people are really caring about and looking to companies to take a stand on? The top three are civil rights and racial discrimination. No surprise there. That is a huge topic constantly. And I would say under that civil rights element, that is also the Me Too movement. And if you're not familiar with any of that, please take time to educate yourself on what the Me Too movement means, which is, and also Time's Up, where women are talking about their sexual harassment and sexual assault in the workplace, and really bringing to light issues there. So what can you do to support that and really jump in? Don't jump on the bandwagon just by talking about it, but how can you make changes in your company and then talk about it? So we'll talk more about those practical next steps. And secondly, employment and job creation. And third is healthcare reform. And this comes from a study done by the Millennial Impact Report. So how do they take action? This is mainly looking at how younger people get involved, and a lot of this is from social media conversations. And honestly, I was so cynical at first whenever I started seeing the Me Too movement happen. Everyone was posting things about their Me Too stories, and I have plenty of Me Too stories to share, but I thought this is not making a difference. We're just having conversation. But honestly, I was proven so wrong when we've seen massive changes happen. I mean, women now feel that their voices will be heard when an issue comes up. And so, I mean, major changes have happened. There have certainly been some issues along the way, but that happens with any movement. But this has mostly been a really positive impact because people are having the conversation online. And I think that's probably what happened with the separating children from their parents at the border. So many people were having such strong conversations and being very vocal on social media. And of course, a lot of higher political advocates were being very vocal as well. But social media has really driven a lot of policy change and a lot of companies to make changes as well. That said, you want to be very careful about how you participate. So we'll talk more about that as well. But other methods are just being politically involved. I was very disappointed in the turnout from the younger generation on voting, but we are seeing a lot of younger people now getting very active on a local level. I've seen more people than ever actually reading through their decisions or who they were going to vote for in the last election. So I think we're seeing a big shift there. And then lastly, of course, just changing their consumer decisions about what products and services to support. This is a thing called, I think it's called consumer boycotts. And so, for example, we saw with Uber a lot of when someone, they realized that they were having a major sexual harassment issue in the workplace, and the whole culture was very negative toward women, and there were a lot of issues coming out around that. And so consumers decided to boycott Uber. And while Uber is still doing really well, they were significantly hurt by that. And ultimately, people had to step down and they had to restructure their company because of these consumer boycotts. So it's really something that consumers are feeling more empowered than ever. So why are brands adopting social impact? Hopefully by now, just in talking about some of these examples, you can see already the huge impact that having a social impact strategy can have on your revenue, but we'll talk a little bit deeper about that. Brands with a purpose set on improving the quality of life outperform the stock market by 120%. Now, in the mortgage industry, it is all about helping families. So you are helping families make the biggest decision of their lives, and this is the impact. That is a huge thing that I think gets understated many times. So make sure that you are integrating that message of purpose and how you're improving quality of life through what you do in every aspect. And then there's another element to this on top of just framing your business as social impact, but also actually getting involved in your community and really having and promoting causes and social impact causes into your business model as well. That is a marketing strategy that is going to be really important to reaching millennials and multicultural segments. Even Mark Cuban, who is one of the biggest investors of all time, and he is I think the star of Shark Tank, but he says social enterprise is the future of business. And social enterprise are companies that are built with profit and social impact. So they have kind of this double bottom line where they have a purpose for business and profit and a purpose for impact. And that is the future of business. If you watch Shark Tank, you'll see how many companies are coming in with that same model where they say we'll talk more about what that model looks like, but where the social purpose aspect is a huge part or the foundation of their business. So 70% of millennials say that they would be willing to pay for a product, pay more for a product that makes an impact on issues that they care about. There was a study done by Nielsen that showed that over 75% of Generation Z would pay more for a product or service if they knew it had a social impact. So we're willing to pay more. And by the way, millennials are up to the age of 37 now. So we are in a good prime consumption age, and it's not just about consumption. It's not just about purchasing. It's about also how you work with companies. The millennials are and how you're recruiting. Millennials are more likely to work for companies who have a clear social mission. So when I work with companies on their recruitment strategy or how you're going to recruit a young and diverse market or employee base, then having that social mission integrated into your messaging is one of the first things we do, because that is so key to really being able to speak the language of your consumers. We've talked a lot in the past about how the new language of modern business is digital, and so speak digital, but you also need to speak social impact. And I think that is a core to reaching millennials as well. So now we're going to start talking through the storytelling and mission-based communication, so understanding the importance of telling an engaging story. But before we do, I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions.
Kristen, we don't at this time, but as a quick reminder, the question box is at the bottom of the webinar panel, and you can just click on that and type in your comments or questions, and we'll be able to answer those at the next break. Thanks, Kristen.
Perfect, thank you. So continuing and talking about the importance of telling an engaging story, storytelling has become a big thing in marketing as well. There's a lot of books out there that are talking about how you develop a marketing strategy around storytelling. Well, it's pretty easy to do when you have a good story. So, there we go. So we're going to work on building that story. First is to build a connection with the consumers. So understand who your consumers are and how you can have a connection. I think that first, in order to do this, you need to really build your network. So if you haven't seen some of the past webinars that we've done or any of the content, you can refer back to where Karen mentioned at nationalmi.com/in millennial resources, and you can find some of the social media trainings that we've done. But really build your network and then build a connection by identifying first the subject to feature. So one, you want to highlight a cause or certain people or case studies, like you could partner with a local pet shelter. Now, when you first think about this, think about what brands or what causes or issues are important to you and to your company. So you might think about something that is home related. A pet shelter is great, and I've seen companies do this. Wintrust was just doing this recently, and also Movement Mortgage, where they would bring in or partner with a pet shelter and do a big event, and it's all about bringing you home and bringing a pet home. And I've seen a lot of companies do this really successfully. It's a great way to show your involvement in the community and make a difference. The great thing about all of this is that it does make you feel good. So you can feel great about finding these sweet animals, new homes, and then also be able to spotlight that. More about how you spotlight that a little bit more. But secondly, how is your service making an impact? And so on this point, think about, of course, this number of families served, not number of units served. So just framing how how you do your business, and just kind of keeping it on that mission-driven language. And who is benefiting from your company? So who are your communities that you're serving, and who could be the communities that are maybe not reached as well? So to reflect here, who is your audience? Are they millennials? Are they, where are they living? Who could you serve better? And where are they located? So can it expand? And can it become more diverse? There's so much opportunity in underserved markets, which consists a lot in the Latino community and certain Asian communities, African American community. And this takes time to really understand these markets and understand how to build a connection there, like we talked about before. But you want to make sure that you are thinking about how you can expand it and better serve these markets. So how do you approach outreach? One, tailor your messaging to relate to a variety of audiences. And so one size does not fit all anymore in general in business, but definitely when you're thinking about specific social impact strategies. And offer resources in local languages as well. So think about how you can, if you can translate certain documents into the language you're trying to reach. Be careful of compliance and always follow through with your company's compliance, because the regulations differ based on the state that you're in as well, and of course the company that you're in. But in-language materials are so helpful and important to reaching underserved markets. So I'm going to walk through a few examples of brands who are sharing their social cause and their social impact in a way that I think really reflects what we're talking about here. These are mostly social enterprises. So these are companies that are built on that idea of profit and mission. But I honestly think that is what many mortgage companies are, or mortgage companies could be. And I think I've chosen ones that really highlight the cause and the way that they talk about it in a way that I think is really relevant to your business. And then we can talk more about, there's tons of companies that if you pay attention, you'll notice so many companies using social impact language in the way that they talk about their business or something they're doing in their community. These are just kind of like their integral business model. One is Tom's Shoes, and this is Tom's Shoes. If you aren't aware, you buy a pair of shoes and they will give a pair of shoes to someone in need. And it started, I think, by giving shoes in Argentina. But Tom's Shoes is improving lives, and that's kind of their motto and what they say, improving lives. So very simple, and this is, yeah, with every product you purchase, Tom's gives something in need. One thing I remember hearing someone talk about, and I can't remember which company it was, but I know it was based in Denver, and they talked about that with every loan, they gave a percentage to a charity organization, and that was, I think it was providing homes to homeless or something like that. But this give one, take one, give one model could really be a very easy thing to integrate into your business. And then you have money where your mouth is. You're really promoting and doing something that has a social impact, and it's pretty straightforward. And then what this company was doing when I was talking to them about that model, they would also every Friday share how much money they were giving to that organization, and talk about this gave 3 new homes to these families, and told that story. So really make sure that you're telling the story as you think about your social impact strategy. And then Warby Parker, I mentioned this one, where buy a pair, give a pair. But the way that they describe it is the whole story begins with you. So it kind of appeals to that me generation. It starts with me, but I am empowered to have an impact. So I am able to give and do something by consuming your product. So it's a very interesting model. They are very authentic in the way that they talk about it. But I would recommend actually checking out their website, because in the way that they talk about things, it's all impact, but they are selling a product. They're selling glasses. That could easily be a commodity. And I don't know what just happened to my screen here, but I'm going to pause here for a second and see if we have any questions. And if not, then I'm going to try to get this loaded again. But Karen, do we have any questions so far?
Kristen, it looks like you're frozen. We can hear you okay, but your audio's down and your screen's down and your video is down. We don't have any questions at this time, other than when you said that the local Denver company may, on Friday, they put out what donations they had given. Do you know if they posted that like on their website, if they did a social post in Facebook, Twitter? Do you know what avenues they may have shared that information with?
Yeah, so I don't think they actually leveraged this to the best that they could, but I know they were telling me about how they did this internally. They would have a meeting every Friday, just that it was kind of an update, and then they were sharing. They would share internally, like, this is what's going on, and get everyone excited. So it was more about building company culture. But what they could have done is share this on social media, on all the channels, and do, video interviews with people that were impacted by that, and do some more advertising in that area. So yeah, absolutely. So I am going to, it looks like everything shut down for me for some reason, so I'm just reloading that, and but it should be up here in just a minute. So in the meantime, I'll just share a little bit more information about some other examples that I've heard and questions people have had. And if a question comes up, just let me know. But to start, there were a couple. Oh, go ahead.
I have it on my end too, so if at any point we need to flip back to going live on my screen, I can do that.
Okay, great. I will let you know. I think we'll be fine here in just a second. But yeah, it gives me time to share a little bit more about this other company that I was going to spotlight, I believe, next on the next slide anyway. And it was that there's a branch from Fairway Independent Mortgage Company who their whole thing is impact. And it's really interesting. When you go to their main page, it is showing a ticker of how many people are impacted by their company. And so, and it's not just their company and mortgages, it's also money that they're giving to charity. So I'll show you an example of that. And I believe I'm back up. Is this showing for you yet?
It's still showing your Warburg Parker screen.
Okay. Well, it is not letting me take it back over. So maybe I'll have you take it back if you have that deck available.
Yeah, let me try that real quick here. And I apologize, everyone. We'll get this. Oh, yeah, there you go. Now you're on. Okay.
Okay, that's me, but I can't show my screen. It's not letting me have that option.
Okay. All right.
You can say that. If you want to just try re-giving me the controls, then I can try that too.
Okay, so I gave the controls back to you.
Okay, yeah, it's not letting me take that. So I will let you take it forward, and then I'll just talk through them.
Okay. So let me show my screen here. Hang on just a second. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay. So thank you for your patience, everyone. So sorry about that. I don't know why this shut down, but we can keep going. So the next company I wanted to spotlight was Everlane. Their whole thing is radical transparency. This is a clothing company or like retail oriented. And I think that radical transparency really encompasses that value that we were talking about before. And they use a hashtag called Know Your Factories. And so this is a great example of a company that has created their own hashtag that is cause oriented, and their product is fairly expensive, but it's built on this social impact or this mission to make sure that everything is fair trade and done appropriately at their factories. And so they use that hashtag and promote the value of radical transparency. That, as you can see, would be a very easy thing to integrate into your business model as well. So we can go into the next example. And then Swell Investing, there's lots of robo-investors out there now, like Betterment, and there's others that people are using to invest in the stock market and create a portfolio. There's a new one called Swell Investing that is all about investing in social causes, or allowing you to at least be aware of which companies are going to have a positive impact and are social or socially conscious. So again, shows that meaningful, or that desire and demand for putting their money somewhere that matters. Their whole thing is invest in progress. And then the next one you may have heard of, called EarnUp. And EarnUp is higher earnings through higher learning. That's their motto. And this is an approach to reducing student loan debt. And it's a totally social impact oriented business. But I think that, again, a good example you can check out independently if you are looking for examples, or even maybe integrating some language into your website or your social media strategy. These are great companies to check out. And I had actually updated this so that it included the example from the mortgage company that I can't show you now, but I realized that the mortgage company I had integrated in here is not on this deck, but I can send it out later as an example. But the whole idea is that you are, like, when you go to your website, be able to see immediately some kind of impact that that you're having in your community. So the last one is Kiva, and Kiva is micro investing, basically, where you're giving a little bit of money to someone and then you get they pay you back with a return, and that's just become a big popular platform. Let's make opportunity a reality for everyone. So these are just little examples of companies that are doing this. If you look at Coca-Cola's website or and Starbucks, of course, website, any of these major companies, you'll see at least one page, if not a whole initiative and campaign around social impact. So now we're going to move into the next section on messaging tips and strategies. This will allow us to get in a little bit more on a granular level on how you can integrate these messaging, this kind of mission-driven messaging into your business. So the next slide is making your purpose clear and promoting your message. So this would be, first identifying what your message is and how you can clearly promote that. So maybe it's helping families, maybe it is impacting communities, just kind of making a very clear statement and going with it. This picture here is from WeWork, which is a co-working space, and their whole motto is "Do what you love," and that's on everything that they have, and it is a phrase that is evoking that kind of their mission, and then they have their logo on there as well. But I would really recommend kind of creating this campaign that is really big, that conveys that message, that impact-oriented message, and then your name is integrated into that. So the next slide is choose your cause wisely. As I said before, you want to think about your how this cause might interact with your brand, and is it something that is housing oriented? Is it something that can bring it back to home in some way, or is it something that's part of your story? I was talking with someone who did a lot around HIV education because she had lost her best friend to AIDS during the AIDS crisis. And so that was something that their company really promoted and was built into their strategy. And so if it's something personal like that you can really tell a story about, then that's something to go with. You want to do what you are going to be able to really get behind in an authentic way. But if you're just looking for generally something to get behind, there's partnering, and Wintrust partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and there's Movement Mortgage does a lot as well. I know I mentioned both of those earlier, but they are very focused on how you can integrate your social impact into your business model. So the next slide is not to just choose a random cause, but make it relevant, again, to your brand and voice. The next one, because I already talked about this one a little bit, we can go on to the next slide. And make sure that you are really familiar with what your purpose is and how you can authentically convey that, because millennials will do their research. Millennials and Generation Z are really going to look into whether you're being serious about a cause or you're just talking about it in order to get more business. 76% of millennials will conduct research when a company takes a stand to see whether the claim is authentic or all for show. So be prepared. Don't just jump on the bandwagon of Me Too or whatever and then something come out that backfires. Make sure that you're prepared as a company to really take on this kind of mission-driven mentality or build from what you have. Next slide. So third is to use a combination of positive emotion-based language and factual language. So use the emotional aspect where you're, do what you love, like that's kind of bringing you back to something positive, but also base it on facts. So on the next slide, we can move forward. So one, appeal to how the individual will be affected. So bringing it back to the me generation, how is the individual empowered or impacted through this cause and through this change? And then support that through facts and credibility. Everyone wants a good story. Everyone is first pulled in by the emotion and the individual impact here. And then, but then we want to validate it through facts. So that's why it's important to start with the emotion and then go into facts. We can move on. Fourth is to use a compelling story to share your message. And so think about how you can tell your story. If it is about helping people, let's say you really want to promote autism, and that was, or how you can support families with autism. Think about how you can bring families in who are affected by that. And maybe there's people in your company who are affected by autism, and you can have them speak to why this is an important cause and what are some of the challenges and barriers. Use video and use video really to convey that message, and then show images and facts and stories that are based on the actual impact that you're having. So if you're getting involved in the community, you're taking photos there and supporting and promoting those partnered organizations, like the nonprofits that you're working with. And but think strategically about it. So you'll have media like video, that's a whole thing. So you want to draft that out. And then secondly, you're going to have actual events and activities, and you're going to be taking photos and all of that throughout. And that also comes with nonprofit trips. So that's part of that strategy. And then you have your social media strategy. So pulling that all together and posts, and then lastly, articles and publications. So that's really how we structure working with clients as well. If we have the media coverage, social media, articles, and nonprofit partnerships. And that should be kind of more how you display that. So next slide, continue. Incorporate a call to action for timely response and feedback. So make sure that you are bringing it back home, and just have the call to action like donate here or learn more here, and have some kind of call to action for your community or follow this cause, something related to that. And then you are also bringing it back to your company as well. Next slide. Social media campaigns are key to all of this, and you can go on to the next slide as we talk through this. One, you want to think about a hashtag and create a hashtag that is relevant to this cause. So I think that like the Everlane example, Know Your Factories, great example of using the hashtag, and just put it on everything. It gives people it kind of gives a brand to this. And if you go on Twitter, for example, or Instagram and click on hashtag #MeToo, you're going to see all stories about Me Too and about the Me Too movement. And so it gives you that kind of collective space to pull all of those stories together, and it is helpful in branding your campaign as well. And then partner with an influencer or organization. So think about the nonprofits that you might be able to work with who are already working in that space. And so you're really just supporting that, and then that allows them to promote your company to their constituents and members as well. And you can incorporate live video into your event strategy as well. And I can continue on. And handle controversy head on. So if something does come up within your company, and right now there's so much happening where something negative, a negative PR issue comes up, you need to address that authentically and be very straightforward. So that's why it's also important that you have a social impact strategy, so that you have a lot of positive news that can outweigh any negative stuff that comes out. But just make sure that you don't disguise that you are addressing it and saying, this is what's happened, we are apologizing, whatever. I think Starbucks actually did a really good job of handling that in a recent racial issue that came up as well. So we can move on to the next slide. So host regular events that promote this, and we can continue to the next slide. But just think about how you can partner with organizations to create volunteer opportunities for your office. Allow your employees to take one day a year at least that's a full day of service, and allow them to take that time off of work and volunteer somewhere. You might organize a big thing, and particularly I would recommend making it about the cause that you have chosen to support for that year. And think about offering educational seminars to some of the constituents in the nonprofit that you're supporting. So if you are working with Habitat for Humanity, then you can work with their employees and some of the families that they work with and offer educational seminars. And then other activities like donation drives and community building. And then promote initiatives in an organic way. So don't be overly salesy, and be really careful of the humble brag where you might say, look how great we are, we're giving money to someone, or look how awesome we are for doing this. Don't do that. Frame it all as, hey, come join us in supporting this organization, or join us in supporting this cause, or we want to inform you about this cause and why it's important to us. And so it's very authentic, and it shows you as a leader in kind of promoting that social impact, but you're bringing people in, or you're telling a story. So I apologize for the technology issues, but despite that, this is something that is very important to me and our organization. It's what our whole company is built on, is helping companies create mission-driven marketing strategies that have a social impact. So if you have any questions, or if you have a particular strategy that you're, like if you have, a lot of CRA stuff going on and not really integrating that into your mainstream marketing strategy, I am always happy to talk about that and help out. We also have a newsletter, our first kind of new launch of our newsletter coming out next month. And if you want to sign up for that, we're going to be sending out a lot of resources like this, a lot of stuff that National MI supports as well, and sponsors. And so you can sign up for that at culturaloutreach.com. And I'll open it up for any questions. You can go into the last slide where you can access my contact information as well.
So Kristen, a lot of great information. Thank you so very much. And I think the wheels are turning, and people are thinking about how they can implement all this. And we did have a question about, is it being recorded? And I think they want to be able to go back and listen to it and kind of make notes and that type of thing. And yes, it is being recorded, and it'll probably be posted on our website at nationalmi.com under resources, under Millennial Resources, and it'll probably be there by Monday. So we appreciate everyone joining us today. Kristen, thank you so much for being a part of this presentation and all the great information. And we didn't have any other questions come in. So
okay, thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Everyone have a great day.